So I've been thinking about Halloween lately, um, doing something that I never do, which is watching the fun Halloween movies, not the scary ones, like The Addams Family and Hotel Transylvania and Hocus Pocus, and this particularly bizarre one that I saw the other night, which was Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Being somewhat peculiar myself, the title at least drew me in. And there's really a sense now that we want something normal. And Halloween is that opportunity. It's like we feel like we lost Easter, we lost the 4th of July. What about Halloween? Can we have Halloween? And I was thinking back of some of those memories, and we had 4 window decorations that we would get up out of the basement, and the skull went in this window, and the black cat went in this window. And the witch went in this window, and the skeleton went in the door, except that nobody ever saw the skeleton because we took the window out of the door for the trick-or-treaters. And that was always really exciting because there was something about like disassembling your house once a year that was just sort of cool. And Halloween is actually how I got the house that I live in now. When I was looking at it, it was in the neighborhood, and the woman came back because normally you're not in the house when you're showing. And I said, I remember you. I remember going trick-or-treating at your house when I was little. And that sort of formed a bond. And at that point, I knew that that's where I was going to be, and she knew that I was the one that she wanted to have be there. And yeah, what I didn't say was she was probably the one that gave out the little peanut butter chews that pulled your fillings and sixlet. But, she did not give out cool candy. And of course, Halloween is different now. I don't have to wear a costume. What's scarier than a math teacher? But there is one costume that I regret. 4th grade was my last year of trick-or-treating, and I dressed up like an Indian. I had my Indian guide's vest on. I had Mom's old long hair wig because in the 70s everybody needed to have a long-haired wig. And I went out and I didn't think anything of it. Now we would call that red face, and it's very disrespectful. I didn't mean for it to be disrespectful at the time. It was a costume. But what was the consequence of that? The consequence was that I was treating a culture like it was dead, that it was just something out of a comic book maybe, that it wasn't real. What I was doing was I was parodying the regalia that was meaningful to the indigenous culture. And I hear my indigenous students at school tell me stories of their peers saying to them, you can't be Indian because there are no more Indians. And another one saying, I changed the way I wore my hair into something pretty radical. So they would stop pulling me out every time they needed a racially diverse picture for the marketing at school. And just this year, we had homecoming. And they have dress-up days for homecoming, and some of us have memories of that. And they decided, we're going to do decades. Says, okay, you dress up as the 1970s, you dress up as the 1980s, you dress up as the 1990s. I don't know why anybody would dress up as the 1990s, but because it's kind of like the hand-me-downs from the 1980s. And you dress up like the 1860s. And because they like to pick on the freshmen, but I'm hearing this all remotely, right? I'm a digital teacher here. I'm on the email list. What? 1860s. It's like, do you really want students to dress up like the Civil War? And because that's 1860s, right? It's just, with everything that has gone on this summer, you're saying a dress-up day for the Civil War. And I got back, Oh, no, 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 no. That's not what we meant. We meant Wild West. And I said, so cowboys and Indians, is this better? And they changed it to the 2000s. And I thought that's probably good. So even in this sort of time of enlightenment, it's there. But this is showing up in our culture a lot. And there's been a lot of discussion around Christopher Columbus. And in some ways, what's more American than Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1942? Mom met it. 1942. No. And a postal holiday. But there is sort of a movement to rename Washington Redskins, or one that nobody talks about, a Jeep Cherokee. Why would you name a car after a tribe that was exiled? The changing of the name of Lake Calhoun to Bede-Maka-Ska, which caused a lot of controversy. Well, people can't pronounce it. And my response to that is, if I can learn how to say Nebuchadnezzar, you can learn how to say Bede-Maka-Ska. It's not that hard. So that acknowledgement and that piece. So it's a very interesting discussion. What do you take down? And when I say take down, not tear down. There is a difference. When you take down a statue, what does it end? What I say is, what does it feel like to see someone who abused you and your people and your friends honored and respected? And I think that people know what it means to be hurt. And what if that person who hurt you is celebrated by the community? And that's the conversation that's interesting, but this isn't new. Let's go back to that piece in Deuteronomy. There the Lord showed him the whole land from Gilead to Dan, all of Naphtali, the territory of Ephraim and Manasseh, all of the land in Judah as far as the Mediterranean Sea, the Negev, the whole region from the valley of Jericho, the city of palms as far as Zor. And the Lord said to him, this is the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when I said, I will give this to your descendants. I have a hard time believing no one lived there. And how did they interact with each other when the Israelites came in? Next week's lectionary, I previewed it. That suggests it probably didn't go very well. And we have a model here for destiny. That this is your right to come in, this is your right to move in. And if ever someone had a divine right to move in and push somebody out, it was the Israelites. God said so. Absolutely true. So we have Moses here, who is the biggest guy since, no one. Because he talked to God. He brought down the 10 Commandments. This is the guy, right? At this point. And then Jesus comes around later and says, love your neighbor as yourself. And it's a bit of a gut punch. So, because it makes it not so easy to just go in and push somebody else out. And so how do we justify this? It's like, maybe all those people who got kicked out of the promised land aren't the Israelites' neighbors. Were they interlopers? Kind of some sort of a tenant that were just using the land until God's people were ready for it. Perhaps they were also chosen for some other destiny. I don't know. This is a hard one to resolve. But Jesus' message kind of upends that idea with the idea that we're all one community and that we're brought together by love. And it's easy enough to say, okay, yeah, I can see myself trying to be nice to my next door neighbors, even when they light up their yard like a carnival and it shines into my bedroom window, which it does. We've all had those neighbors too. But I have to think that there's a little bit more. Whenever I work with my students, I tell them, flip the script. It's usually enlightening. What does it mean to love yourself as you love your neighbor? Or maybe another way to phrase that, how does the way we treat others reflect how we feel about ourselves? How do you treat a clerk or a server when you go out? Do you treat them well? Do you tip well? Even if it's a challenge for you to put the money out there to make the tip, because it is financially difficult to do that sometimes. Do you say hello? How's your day? Or do you treat them as an automaton, a robot working behind the cash register? How is your interaction? Are you on the phone when you're interacting with them? And what does that say? You know, the way that we treat others says a lot about how we feel about ourselves. Are we threatened? Are we insecure? Do we feel victimized? Is this our opportunity to take a little power and a little control in our lives? So when we say love your neighbor, maybe we also need to think, love myself as I love my neighbor. And if I'm not loving my neighbor right, what is it about me that reflects that? What is it about me that I don't like? And let's take it up one more notch. What if God liked us? What if God loved us like we love our neighbors? Are we comfortable with that? It is a bit of a motivation to rethink how we act. And whenever I'm reflecting on these things, I come back to this verse from Psalms. This Psalm 51, verse 4. Against you, you only have I sinned, and done what is evil in your sight. So you are right in your verdict, and justified when you judge. That's hard to hear. And this is how it came to me. In the morning, before I get out of bed, I take some time to reflect. And my mind is usually in a huge stew when I first wake up. And I try to clear that and get some guidance. And sometimes things become very clear, or I get some kind of imagery that I try to lean into. Every once in a while, not often, like twice, I get a number. And one morning that number was 51. And it just stuck there. And I said, this number means something. It's probably a psalm. And I pulled out Psalm 51 and I read it. And I said, I'm not sure what this means yet. And then I logged on to school. And there had been a racist incident at school where some students had been posting racist comments about other students online. And the students about whom they had been posted had taken screenshots of that and posted it publicly. And the students who had posted it, the students of color, were called out for being bullies. And the students who had made the original racist remarks were portrayed as the victim. And that did not go over well, as you can imagine. And the school was trying to backpedal in the sort of way that an organization would backpedal on something like that. And the words that stuck in my head, against you, you only have I sinned, and done what is evil in your sight. So you are right in your verdict, and justified when you judge. That psalm does not give you the latitude to explain your motivation. All it says is, you hurt someone, you were wrong, and you need to acknowledge it. So let's bring this back around to Moses. Moses died before he made it to the promised land. That's the big thing, basically, in that Moses died. That's not a surprise. We knew it was coming. We knew this a long time ago. But maybe there's a message in that as well. Maybe it's not the journey it's the journey that matters, not the destination. Moses was not a failure because he didn't reach his destination. Moses was a success because of all of the people who made it there because of him. We grow and we change, but we'll never be perfect. Yes, I dressed up as an Indian for Halloween. Do I burn that picture? Pretend that it didn't happen? No. Like the psalm says, I have to own my own story, but I wouldn't do it now. And neither would my students. So remember two things. Love yourself as your neighbor, and it's about the journey, not the destination.